Krystal, again, the Israeli military may have done something from the pure perspective of public relations as they incorporate into, we know, their strategy, as they see it as a very important part of their strategy. They may have done something that was counterproductive when a Catholic church in Gaza was hit, and it drew the attention of many conservatives to what was happening. This was a raging debate on X over the weekend among different conservatives. So we can put D6 on the screen. This is a tweet from Joel Berry of the Babylon Bee, who says, quote, "This won't be easy for people to hear, but there are only about 200 professed Catholics still living in Gaza, and they all support Hamas." I just want to read.
Managing editor of the Babylon Bee. So not some low-level rando.
Yeah, and some of my friends on the right, came out and said, we're never dealing with Babylon Bee again. This is the final straw after that happened. And we're going to get into more of this, but I want to read just on that point as a response, this post from former Congressman Justin Amash, former Republican Congressman Justin Amash. He's a libertarian, he's Palestinian. He says, quote, "The claim that Orthodox and Catholic Christians in Palestinian communities aren't, quote unquote, true Christians is reprehensible, an attempt to erase the identity of a people living in the Levant since ancient times and alienate Christianity from its ancestral home, the place of Jesus Christ." Amen, Justin Amash. I think he absolutely nailed that response to Joel. But Krystal, this debate is now not going anywhere for the people who are the most supportive, defensive of the Israeli government at every step of the way. Here is Michael Knowles, who is a Catholic, reacting on his Daily Wire show to news of the church that was hit in Gaza. We can roll D7.
As I've mentioned before, everyone seems to hate the state of Israel these days, mostly coming from the left, but some people on the right have joined. And I've been broadly supportive of the state of Israel, not really as an ideological matter, but as a matter of prudence. And you're losing me. You're losing me. When you strike churches, the only church in Gaza, even if accidentally, but especially if not accidentally, you're losing me. If you're losing Mike Huckabee, the Israeli government is really screwing up, is really not playing its cards right. I agree with the Holy Father. I agree with the Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem, and I agree especially with the Holy Father on most matters. The war needs to come to an end. There need to be political consequences for this action, and the war needs to come to an end. How long is the war going to go on? I know what the answer is. The answer is, well, until the hostages come home. Okay, well, how about we redouble our efforts to get the hostages home, if that's the impediment to peace? Because it seems like there have been a lot of side quests and side missions. The war has been going on for almost 2 years. When's it going to end? Just what's the end of it? Can anyone tell me that? When the hostages are released? Well, then focus on getting the hostages released. Well, no, when Hamas is totally destroyed. Okay, well, when's that going to be? When Iran is no longer funding terrorism. When's that going to be? When Syria is made safe for democracy? When? Give me an answer. Because the war cannot just go on indefinitely. A just war cannot just go on indefinitely.
Okay, Krystal, reaction to Michael Knowles' reaction, and let's just also, now, since the church was hit, it's the only Catholic church in Gaza, as he mentioned. Pope Leo has come out and condemned what happened, obviously. And even Mike Huckabee, to what Michael Knowles just mentioned, has been up in arms. We covered this a little bit last week. He visited the Christian town in the West Bank over the weekend, so on Saturday, and also condemned that, called for, quote, harsh consequences. So this is a real break. The question is, there were plenty of real breaks on the left during the Biden administration. The question is whether that actually trickles into the policy level, and that's much less clear.
You're right.
But as we have covered for a long time, the sort of mainstream average right has a very different position, same thing on the left, as the policymakers on this issue.
Yeah, well...
not the boomers, but...
Right, the young right, yeah. And I think I don't expect there to be a policy consequence. You know, Mike Huckabee has expressed his upset. They'll work out whatever their visa issue is, and he'll move on with his lockstep support, as will Donald Trump. But I guess what bothers me is it seems like it took a fellow Catholic getting killed before he saw anybody as like human beings who were there. And I think it really reveals how much Islamophobia and anti-Arab bigotry allows this situation to persist. They've just been so thoroughly dehumanized that, I mean, think of how much death and destruction and intentional starvation and all of the mosques that have been destroyed and the schools and the refugee camps and the doctors and the hospitals and the ground plowed up so they can't grow food and they're barred from even fishing off their own coast. I mean, just the utter horror, death, disease, starvation, destruction that has been going on now, to his point, for almost 2 years. And so, I mean, I'm glad that finally you have a recognition of like, oh, holy shit, these are actually human beings. Maybe this is wrong. But it does bother me that you didn't see any of the rest of the people who were being murdered as human beings. So that's one of the things that jumped out at me is I do think it really underscores how much this whole project is dependent on a thorough dehumanization of the Palestinian people. And the moment you have some Palestinians who Michael Knowles and Mike Huckabee can recognize as actual human beings, then it becomes pretty clear how horrifying and outrageous the entire project is.
Well, here's what I think is interesting, and maybe it's worth even talking to Michael about. He is a very staunch defender of like the West, the broader West, and that's what I think is particularly compelling about his argument. Is we hear constantly, and he says he's supported Israel generally as a matter of prudence, because for many people on the right, they see Israel as a bastion of Western values versus anti-Western values, people who actually do not believe in liberal democracy as the West sees it. And that juxtaposition has always been really powerful on the right. That purported juxtaposition has always been really powerful on the right. And what I hear from Michael is when you look at conduct like this, that's a cracking facade. The idea that Israel is upholding the values of the West
it's frankly an insane idea at this point.
It's definitely like to see that reaction. I find that really, really interesting because that's the foundational piece of support that keeps even good faith conservatives sort of intellectually behind Israel, and that is what falls apart fairly easily, especially since October 7th. I think that's why this post-October 7th period has been really important. Let's put up, a lot of Catholics were sharing these images of Cardinal Pizzaballa. So this is D8. We can start rolling this. He actually went and visited Gaza. He went off and visited the church on Saturday. So clearly putting himself on the line here, and going into a war zone and touring the destruction.
And this was a guy, Emily, am I correct, that the right really was hoping to see as Pope?
Yes.
And so the fact he's the one that goes, I think, gives it added significance.
Yeah, the best way to explain it would be if you were watching Conclave. He would be sort of one of the conservatives, right? Yeah. In the conservative faction. That's a very rough approximation, and I'm not Catholic, but that's the best way that you can I can kind of explain it. He was on the list of people the right wanted to see potentially step into Francis's shoes because of his reputation as one of the more conservatives. So I think this was a really powerful moment, and this is D9. You can see him posing with kids. Look at that. This is such a beautiful sign of resilience.
And just to go back to this Joel Berry.
Yeah,
This is who he's saying is Hamas.
Yep.
This is who, right here. Look at this little girl taking communion. Yep. This little boy looking over her. That's who he is justifying their murder. Let's be really clear by saying let's be honest, they all support Hamas. That's what he's doing. And the number of tweets and commentators and arguments that I've seen made exactly like this, by the way, applied to the entire population, I can't possibly keep track at this point. But for him to put it out there so clearly about Christians in particular, this is the first, I saw a significant backlash from the right of like, wait, these little kids? You're saying these little kids who are here with with this cardinal taking care, you think they are Hamas and deserve to be murdered?
Yeah, well, there's a Catholic Protestant third rail, particularly on the right, because the right is still more. I think that the sort of professional right, the conservative movement, is knitted together by religious fabric in a way that the left really isn't anymore. And so the Catholic Protestant third rail, when that gets touched, it can flare up. But one of the interesting things I saw is a lot of my fellow evangelicals were wildly offended by what Joel said, and were saying so. This was completely wrong. And that is something that you don't often see, to be honest. A bunch of evangelicals rallying behind Arab Catholics in Gaza because someone dared to affiliate them with Hamas. These are children. 3 people died, 9 were injured, a priest was injured. The church was damaged. Many churches have been damaged over the course of this. And we mentioned earlier, Huckabee was out in the West Bank, and the remaining Christian village, mostly Christian village in the West Bank. And Krystal, I totally understand your point about people waking up to this because Christians are under attack. It's sort of human nature to. It sort of hits home for you when it's people with whom you identify. And so, I absolutely hear what you're saying. This, though, the amount of piling on Joel that happened over the weekend, this really feels like the chapter being turned, like something happened over the weekend.
Was there some other, just real quick, was there some other precipitating, because I saw people Babylon Bee's anti-Catholic vibe, but there were other things that happened.
So Joel has been out at the forefront with James Lindsay and some others condemning Tucker Carlson and Daryl Cooper and the quote-unquote woke right, which I think there's something to the quote-unquote woke right construction if you're talking about Nick Fuentes. If you're talking about Tucker Carlson, no. You're talking about this narrow slice of people who are very identitarian, like Nick Fuentes, who are open racists, as he identified himself on Candace Owens' show, then you could call him neo-woke, identitarian, white nationalist, yes. But
they think that woke is a worse pejorative than Nazi.
So Joel and others have been lumping, I would say, people who are not at all
Dave Smith, let's say there.
Dave,
He's one I think we could safely say.
Right, and particularly because of their positions on Israel. And so that's where this has gotten, that's the precipitating factor here, that people were already primed to be dude, you are being, if anything, you are the one being woke. You're the one sort of engaging in this cancel culture of anyone who dares to question the Israeli government. Not even Israel, but the Israeli government. So that had sort of been percolating.
That was bubbling, okay.
Yeah, and a lot of people do perceive that as Catholic, because a lot of anti-Catholic, because a lot of Catholics tend to be more in that camp than Protestant evangelicals, because Protestant evangelicals have this very, many people are dispensationalists. Evangelicals are dispensationalists, and they have this idea of the nation of Israel and the state of Israel being involved in prophecy and all of that. So it does touch on that third rail. So it was, Joel really stepped into into the minefield.
Yeah, I could tell when I was reading the replies that I was coming in halfway through the conversation.
Yes.
I missed some things. I can tell people are mad, but I definitely missed some things that happened before this. So thank you for explaining that to me.
There's a lot going on.
Yes. Speaking of a lot going on, let's go ahead and get to Mehdi on Surrounded.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.